Hello, welcome to Interesting Infinity, Episode 2, and today's topic is Western Violin. I'm Siri here, and today we have Janani Nagasubramanya with us. She is going to educate us about the Western Violin. Over to you, Janani.
Hi, I'm Janani Nagasubramanya. I really enjoy anything that's related to music, which is why today I'm going to talk a little about Western Violin. At the end, there's an amazing, mind-blowing fact coming up. With that, hope you all gain something out of this podcast. Thank you to Interesting Infinity for inviting me to do this episode, and with that, let's set on with this journey of Western Violin. Let's begin from the structures of the violin. All violins are carved from wood, and not just any tree trunk, but special ones like spruce and maple. If you look at a violin, you should understand the purpose of each part of it. There is the body or the corpus of the violin where everything is attached. The neck of the violin is to hold it. The fingerboard is the black portion of the neck where, you guessed it, you place your fingers. There's a chin rest where you obviously rest your chin. There are turning pegs and adjusters to fine-tune your violin, and there are two F-shaped holes to release the sound. Violins have different patterns inside to vibrate and produce different notes, and the bridge, where tuners and strings are connected.
Janani, could you tell us about the history of the Western Violin?
Here's a little history and background of the violin. These fiddles, as all orchestral string instruments are called, were made first in the 15th and early 16th centuries in Italy. They started as three-stringed instruments like the rebec and viol. The oldest violin is Charles IX, but when it was made is unknown, between the years of 1558 and 1564. The overall pattern for the violin was set in the 17th century by the Amati family, which is followed in manufacturing even now, the basic being 4 strings, all the way to electric violins used in these generations. Learning the violin influences your brain in a good way and keeps a balance in your life. There are symphonies, ensembles, or solo types of orchestras, and classical music is very popular with them. Some famous composers were Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Vivaldi, Chopin, and Paganini, and etc. Let's take a look at where violins stand in the orchestra. Most of the time, of course, there are variations, but violins are mostly the most important instrument in an orchestra because they can play the highest notes and often have the melody of the song. The other instruments, which are the violas, cellos, basses, and rarely harps, they support the harmony with a lower octave, and sometimes they get the melody too. Putting everything together, the music sounds extraordinarily beautiful. Now you may be wondering, wow, that's fascinating. I really want to start playing the violin right now. But where should I begin? What should I do right now? Don't worry. The best type of violin in the world is the Stradivarius types that professionals use. But if you are a beginner, that may be a little too much. Any violin you get will have a good tone and sounds produced. But keep in mind that as you start, I recommend renting a violin because as a person grows, their size will change and buying multiple instruments can be very expensive. Also, if you want to return it, it'll be easier. Make sure to enroll in the right level class so that everything you need to know to begin is covered. How to measure the right size for you is to stretch out your non-dominant hand and place a violin on it. See if your fingers touch the scroll at the top. Then it's perfect. If you can wrap your hands around it, then it's small for you. You can ask the music store owner to help you get a decent violin to play comfortably. Let's go a little deeper into how a violin is played. There are 4 strings in a violin, and starting from the left, it is the G string, then the D string, then the A string, and finally the E string. The notes begin on the G string from A, followed by B, C, D, E, F, G, and come back to A again. Higher octaves of these notes can be played on the same string by shifting higher into the instrument or moving on to the next string. Practicing scales with all these notes put together is very important. There are 3 minor scales, which are the natural minor, melodic minor, and harmonic minor, and there are 15 major scales with 6 flat scales, which are C flat, G flat, D flat, A flat, E flat, and B flat. There are 2 sharp scales, which are F sharp and C sharp, and 7 natural scales, which are F natural, C natural, G natural, D natural, A natural, E natural, and B natural, which are natural scales. Here is the D major scale with the arpeggio as a sample. There are also different techniques while playing a violin in Latin. Arco is when you play with the bow. Pizzicato is when you pluck the strings. Slurs are when you connect notes together. Tremolo is when you play 16th notes really fast. Vibrato is when you add a vibration to the given notes. Spiccato is a kind of brushing on the strings with the bow. While staccato is short-sized notes. Etc. and etc. different types of techniques. This leads me to how many beats a note has. In 4/4 time signature, a whole note has 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. A half note has 2 beats. 1, 2. A quarter note has 1 beat. 1. And an eighth note has a half beat. 16th note has 1/4 of a beat, and so on and so forth. And the same applies to rests. Yes, I know that seems like a lot of information at once, and there's still a lot more, but as you keep practicing and learning it, you will get a hang of it, and I am confident about it. I know what you're thinking now, and it's one of the frequently asked questions. What's the variation between Western violin and Indian classical violin? The main difference between Indian classical violin and Western violin is that they are tuned differently. Western violins tend to sound higher and sharper, but Indian violins sound deeper. The postures of holding them are also quite different. You use a shoulder rest and place the violin on your shoulder and keep it out straight for Western, but your body is kind of bent and you support it with your foot in the Indian style. In the classical version, the playing closely matches the singer's voice during concerts. The Indian violinists make sure to rub coconut oil to their fingers so that it is easier to slide for gamakams and their fingers won't get cut on the strings. But applying oil on a Western violin is bad for it. But the structures of both the violins are the same. The sounds produced from it is sweet for a particular audience. Alright, we are finally here to what everyone's been waiting for, the mind-blowing fact I promised. Drum roll please! Okay, so as I said, Stradivarius is the best type of violin in the world, and this particular violin, known as the Messiah Stradivarius, made in 1716 by Antonio Stradivari, costs about, you'll never guess it, $20 million. This is about, drumroll again, 151 crores, 75 lakhs, 40,000 rupees. What? I know that this amount is not imaginable at all. Now, this instrument is on display at the Ashmolean Museum, Oxford, in England, for viewing. Let's go visit that sometime because I believe that buying it is quite impossible. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast arranged and produced by Interesting Infinity and written by me. Hopefully it was interesting and blew your mind. Some of you may even decide to take up an instrument to learn how to play. But until then, I will see you all next time. Thank you for this awesome opportunity, Interesting Infinity.
Thank you so much, Janani, for the wonderful session, and thank you so much for educating us so well about the Western violin. Thank you all for listening to this podcast. This is Siri signing out. See you. Stay tuned to Interesting Infinity. Bye.